Welcome to the First Issue Club comic book podcast. We are your weekly comic book reading club that focuses primarily on first issues. First issues can be read. They can be appreciated for their covers. They can be thrashed by the side of your bed because you're trying to get a good read in before you go to sleep. And they could be protected and placed in their mylar sleeves, sent off for grading at a later date. Whatever your motive is for collecting comic books, that's great and all well and good. We're here to talk about the content, the stories, and we love reading our comics. Because just like Sue Storm, we love a good read. A First Issue Club.
Beautiful. Was that Robert Frost?
Yeah. There's another set of footprints in the sand next to me, and it's
Stan Lee carrying us home.
It's exactly right.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you back for another week of comic book goodness. I'm Greg.
And I'm Mike.
Andy can't be with us this week. He had some plumbing issues. That's nothing to say about anything he had for dinner. It's just he had to pipe back up on him.
Outing Andy.
It's not even that big of a deal. I was worried because his comic books are in his basement.
Outing Andy sounds like a TV show or something.
Yeah, or like a sweet punk band from the 90s. So you just got us two knuckleheads this week in the club. We're going to be talking some light comic book news. Some things that went down in this Amazing Spider-Man number 31 issue that we're going to go through.
Yep.
We are currently recording this episode via video, which if you want to see that, go to patreon.com/firstissueclub and check that out. We have a couple tiers over there that you can join. One is for $1 and one is for $3.99. We have a bunch of videos and episodes over there, including this one. So if this sounds like fun to you, go check it out.
See what clothes we're wearing.
Or if we're wearing clothes at all.
Oh.
Am I lying? Who knows? Go check it out. First Issue Club. Patreon.
It's a Patreon, not an OnlyFans. I'm getting tired of OnlyFans being a punchline.
I never considered it a punchline.
Overused. I think people just say like, oh, check out my OnlyFans.
Then you respond with, okay.
Yeah.
Give me your username.
Maybe I will.
Was it feet pics? What you got? Butt stuff? Dick ratings? Girlfriend material? What you got?
Too many genres. You just have to scroll to page 6 to find the category regular porn.
Also, OnlyFans is much more than pornography.
Is it?
We could start an OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's right. Anyone can start one.
It's like a Patreon.
For whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
That community just found itself there.
And that's fine. That's
because
great.
They were willing to house it. Was Patreon a little like, we don't really want this to be our brand?
No. Because for a minute there, OnlyFans almost stopped explicit material on their website.
Really? Yeah.
And then every sex worker was just like, do you know how much money we bring you?
Yeah.
Every month?
There was another platform that was the same way. That was like why Tumblr didn't succeed as much as like a DeviantArt or like one of those image platforms that's still around, because they were like, yeah, post all your like lewd cartoons.
Tumblr used to be able to have explicit and nudity on their website. Then they stopped it. Yeah. And then no one gave a shit about Tumblr anymore.
Yeah, and then Tumblr like failed more.
And then so I think DeviantArt you can still post your art form, whether it be
however you
explicit
want.
Or not. Yes.
Right. These are the VHS Betamax of like learnings, right?
Yes.
And it's wild to see how that's transcended through like different types of media and different platforms like over time.
Right.
That it's like the one that embraces porn is the one that ultimately succeeds. Yeah.
That's why the internet was just like, yep, come on.
And that's what we talk about here, like I mentioned at First Issue Club, really getting into the reading of comics and the content.
What else we got to take care of before we get into comic books and stuff? We have social medias. Go check out that, firstissueclub.com. We have our episodes and blogs there, and maybe a special hidden button that is available that if you're a longtime fan may have noticed pop up.
Oh, do we have anything on a shop?
So the shop is active, and I'm closing up talks with our distributor right now, and by the end of next week, we should be able to order shirts and stuff from firstissueclub.com.
All right.
So if you want merch, go to firstissueclub.com. There should be a little shop button. Click on that and order away.
Stand by, First Issue Club listeners.
First Issue Club.
Stand tall.
Stand by.
And stand by.
Stand by.
What was the quote?
Stand down and stand by.
Stand down and stand by.
God,
yeah.
you did not just quote Donald Trump on this fucking show. First Issue Club audience, stand down and stand by.
This weekend over
shirts.
Over our text thread, we were joking about Elon Musk saying to me, my X-Men, X as in
his
platform, and men as in men
right
on
wing.
his right wing,
Yeah.
alt-right men on on X.
God. I don't know how much longer I want to do social media for this show. It is just like a hellscape on every platform.
Yeah, totally.
And so, I mean, there's some weeks you get light content on the Twitter, and some weeks you get heavy content. I have not seen that influence the viewership of the show at all.
I'll have a video pop up on my Instagram. I heard someone on another podcast articulate this, and I was like, wow, I do the exact same thing. Is that you'll see someone do something slightly wrong on a video, or like say something wrong, and then you like go to the comments, and it's like the first 40 comments are people just grilling this person over something that just like doesn't matter, or like telling them how to do it the right way or why they're wrong.
Right.
And it's just like, man, this sucks. Like this person was just like trying to show how they like cut a watermelon, and now they're just being fucking eviscerated online.
Like accidentally called it a watermelon and are getting roasted by 13-year-olds.
Or their like kid was in the kitchen while they were cutting a watermelon, and they're like,
not realistic.
Shouldn't have your kids around while wielding such a big knife. Not very safe.
Yeah, thanks for roasting me on my child safety and my knife abilities. Oh God. Anyway,
God bless the internet.
No news to you guys that the internet is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Speaking of news, let's get into some comic book news.
Yeah.
So IDW has recently been doing a bunch of layoffs and restructuring.
Did they not fully go under?
No.
I thought that they filed for bankruptcy, right?
Am
I thinking of a different publisher?
Oof. They did. IDW did a bunch of layoffs.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
can't
Vault or
remember.
Aftershock or somebody.
No.
Someone who was a
did.
publisher
It
that
may
I
have been
liked
IDW.
filed for bankruptcy like 6 months or a year ago.
You know, it was IDW because we joked about how many properties they had.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you stopped making, you know, Stranger Things versus Transformers, maybe you could keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
But IDW had this originals line that like The Hunger and Dusk and Brymore were on, like their new original
Bryn Mawr.
line. Yes, and they're now kind of like stepping away from that stuff, which was like the most exciting thing that IDW was doing
Totally.
right now.
Yes.
And so, unfortunately, they're walking back that stuff because to you know, be able to pay the bills, they've started to focus more on their licensing material.
Yep.
So get prepared for more Stranger Things and TMNT versus ...
I get it. The other creators will get their story told on different publishers. I'll live with it. IDW, do your own thing. Keep your people employed.
The however many you have right now.
Yeah. Do what you got to do.
Okay.
Make smart biz decisions.
Smart biz decisions.
I'm fine with it. It's a bummer. I don't care for any of that like licensed stuff hardly ever. It's normally shit.
It must be that good that it just like...
There's the novelty of the cover more than anything.
Yeah.
I honestly bet you that 50% of the people who buy those comics get a kick out of the cover or how ridiculous the concept is and like thumb through it at most. I bet you a lot of people don't even read those.
Yeah.
You just see Stranger Things and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the cover is funny.
Yeah.
and you like say, "Oh, I love those two things. I gotta have this."
This is funny. I'll spend $5 on this.
Yeah,
I'm a rich guy.
and they're gonna start crossing over a third thing.
What is your ideal crossover for IDW? Like
Pearl Jam and the Avengers play Nintendo.
We've nailed it. Got it in one, folks. Couldn't have asked for a better answer than that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. This week, Spider-Man 31 came out, which is if you're into
Landmark numbering, the big 3-1.
if you're into legacy numbering, that would be Amazing Spider-Man 925, which is a little more.
They gotta
apt.
stop with all the 25s being a thing.
I know this
75s and 25s are not a reason to do like a big ass $10 issue.
This one was stacked like a fucking annual. This thing was ginormous, and this was the big wedding issue between Janice and Joe Robertson.
Yep.
One of them being the daughter to Tombstone, the other being the son to the editor-in-chief to the Daily Bugle.
Yep.
This, of course, is going to kick off the upcoming storyline in Spider-Man of Gang War, which is just like deal of superheroes versus essentially just New York at large. And I think Luke Cage is currently the mayor of New York.
Yep.
So I'm sure he'll get the Defenders together.
Yeah.
And they'll have to figure all that out. It's one big happy family.
I bet a lot of people are stoked for this because I feel like one thing I see people say all the time is that they miss like street level stories.
Yeah.
Be it from Daredevil, Spider-Man, Luke Cage, and on, that a lot of the bigger world-saving things just aren't doing it for him anymore, and we miss like what She-Hulk is doing right now, where she's like her dating life, and it's restricted to New York City and her job, and like that series got, I don't know if it won, it got nominated for a handful of Eisners.
It did, yeah.
But
for writing.
Yeah, there's definitely an appetite for those more personal stories. And I think like you can build them up to the bigger events as long as you get back to basics with that stuff. So like when Donny Cates started writing Venom, he made that a much more personal story, and then it eventually went to like a cosmic level, right?
They went to way big.
But we got eased into it over like 40 issues, so it wasn't like if we had started with just like Null in outer space immediately, I would have been like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
I'm not gonna read this crap.
So I think more or less what I'm trying to say is I think people would be excited to read some street level.
I like the street level stuff
based in
myself,
where the most fantastical thing happening is that there is a superhero there,
punching you through a wall.
Yeah. I think us older dudes love that shit.
We're now in that category. Old dude.
What is so what was the event title?
Gang War.
Gang War. Okay. Do you know what there's a thing that's called Contest of Champions or something? Or
Chaos of Champions.
Contest of Chaos?
Yes. Because Contest of Champions
is a video game.
Contest of Champions was actually an event that we talked about on the last Patreon.
Okay.
That was like one of the first events that Marvel did that led into Secret Wars.
Okay.
And so Chaos of Champions, I think.
Contest of Chaos.
Something like that.
Chaos of Champions doesn't even make sense. Could that be it?
Champions of Chaos.
Champions of Chaos?
Well, and it's like
some combo of these words.
Agatha.
It sounded like a video game to me, and so I skipped it. And now I'm like, oh, this might actually be like a normal event and not just like a video game.
Yeah, it's a mini event. Agatha has figured out how to reassemble the Darkhold, and so she's using her magical powers to pit superheroes against one another for her own enjoyment.
Okay. Her own pleasure. Get your rocks off however you want, Agatha.
Go off, Queen. Back to Spider-Man. Spider-Man and the Black Cat break up.
No.
Yep. Which
I was enjoying that relationship. I think the idea that Spider-Man becomes boring when he's in a relationship is the dumbest take ever. I think you can have characters that are in relationships and evolve as people, and like we don't have such Neanderthal brains that we're just like, Spider-Man isn't interesting unless he's like dating around. Like, I don't know.
Well, it's like, and like, it's not hard to tell compelling stories when someone else is in a committed relationship. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's fine. I think it's part of like we as adults,
growing up,
live in these committed relationships and deal with those problems every day.
I know.
So
people,
why not like incorporate them into stories?
Our funny
like,
picture books.
I think you hear like Chris Claremont was just like when we were at a con once, he was like, sorry, ladies, but it's true. Mary Jane made Peter boring, so we had to get rid of her. And it was like, God, I just think that's
Chris Claremont's been divorced 7 times.
I just think that's such a fucking lame take. And anytime like they go through the process of building a relationship with this character and
then immediately
then you find it interesting, and then I just imagine CB Cebulski and these guys who are just like, Spider-Man only works when he's single, being like the decision makers. Like, I just hate that motivation for like constantly having him break up and come be back on and then date, Mockingbird for some reason.
I mean, I think it's easy to do, to be honest. I mean, it actually would be a more compelling story to have Spider-Man be a successful superhero and try to be, a thoughtful and engaged husband or fiance or boyfriend or whatever.
It adds more. If you're saying you want more street level stuff, it adds more stakes to that because he's trying to balance crime fighting with like being home on time and picking up his kid and stuff like that. And I personally think that's more interesting than breaking him up with other characters constantly.
I know people who have been married for over 30 years, and one person is like a long-haul trucker. Like, that's essentially a superhero. Like, you're gone away for weeks at a time, and then you're home for maybe a week.
Yeah.
And you can make, if they can make that work, then Peter Parker can make any kind of marriage work. It doesn't matter that he's a superhero.
Yeah. I'm at a point where I'm just annoyed with anything that happens being undone. Like, I was excited about Mary Jane moving on and having those kids of her own and husband, and then they kind of just like started slashing away at that storyline and those characters. Did they sacrifice the husband as part of the storyline? It's been a while. My comics are monthly, so I'm not super fresh on that where that storyline ended.
For who?
Spider-Man.
No.
You don't read Spider-Man.
No.
Okay.
I do not.
Then I'll stop talking about it.
Okay. So they're broken up. Superior Spider-Man is returning with Doc Ock remembering that he was Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah, they've been teasing at that.
So we'll have that to deal with, which I'm totally here for.
He wants his memories back right now. Is where I left off reading.
Mm-hmm. So I think he's got them back.
Okay.
And so we are notoriously pro Doc Ock as Superior Spider-Man here on this show. Maybe this time it'll be a little more consensual.
Yeah. Again, this is a thing where like they did something really interesting with Doc Ock over time, and then I bet you anything, some of those older higher ups at Marvel were just like, no, he has to be evergreen, the same thing forever. And that fucking sucks.
What else? Oh, Mary Jane is finally going to be Jackpot in a new limited series. So she's going to have her special casino powers
for
a little longer. If you don't know what that is, like she has like a holographic slot machine kind of thing that spins, and like whatever it lands on is the power she gets. And so they're going to be exploring that a little bit more in the Spider-Man world.
That's another thing that I like that I know they're just going to undo at some point.
Spider-Boy's origin is going to be explored more, which we kind of already knew. They're going to be doing a Spider-Boy series. So
the funny thing is we know, at least from what I've read thus far, we still know extremely little about that character. And it's funny to me how nuts this market is for that first appearance, when it's like that character's origin story and whole deal might not be of interest to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But just the fact that we've been teasing it for so long, like everyone's like, I gotta have this before they even
tell us what it is.
Tell us
I don't care who this fucking kid is. I need it.
Yeah, right.
Let's see here.
It's just a good name, right?
Good. It's a good suit. It's a younger character.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's like
we haven't seen a new entry in the Spider family, quote unquote, for a long time.
Yep. This was like a well, that's not true.
It's not true.
All those Spider-Verse, like there's like a million Spider characters.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Silk and Miguel and
thank you for checking me,
Gwen.
What happens next? Craven and the Queen Goblin, which is like the Red Goblin thing, or who's a woman. They're like shacking up together. So now they're like the new power couple.
New it couple.
They're the new hotness right now on the street. Craven and the Queen Goblin.
Crablin.
Goblin. Queen Crab. Crab Queen. That's cool to me, I guess. I don't really know if you have a take on those two canoodling.
No, it's weird. They don't seem related at all.
Well, I hope they're not related if they're canoodling.
You know what I mean.
Booyah! Got them, folks.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be buying half of these things, maybe. If there are these just story points, or are these like each their own miniseries?
Looks like they're going to be each their own miniseries, spinning out from all this stuff.
There might be too many miniseries for me.
The last one is Spider-Man Reign 2.
Rad.
Which that is the notorious Spider-Man story where Mary Jane dies because of Peter Parker's radioactive semen. I mean, who hasn't been there? That's why we wear condoms.
That's the one reason.
The one reason.
Yeah.
And the other reason why you don't have sex before marriage.
The interesting thing about that comic was it jumped like 30 or 40 years in the future.
Yeah.
And then I think, if memory serves, it's been like, 15 years since I would have read any of these. I think there was more of a police state in New York. Does that sound right?
Yes. I think you're right.
Which is like a lot of like, hey, let's jump like 30 years in the future, and it's like RoboCop land kind of thing. Is a common sci-fi fantasy deal. So I'm interested to see with Reign 2, as they're like tentatively calling it at least, if it's going to jump further in the future, if it's going to be like an interim time to see how we got to where Reign was.
Trying to say it might be like a prequel.
A prequel,
like
yeah.
Leading up to...
Because they've got MJ on the
cover.
And Reign 2 starts with you realizing MJ's dead, so it seems like it's probably a prequel.
Yeah, so that, issue 31/295 was a beefy bitch.
Did it tease any of Reign? Reign is like non-canon, so I would think not, unless it was like a backup story.
It's like I said, it was like set up like an annual, and so like they kind of really set up like, oh, by the way, Reign 2 on the way.
Do you know if it was square-bound or not?
It would have had to been. It was huge.
Okay.
I saw it digitally, so
yeah.
Those don't come square-bound.
Yeah.
But that's exciting. Like I do like how when books do this kind of thing of just like their victory lap of just like, hey, Here's what we got coming. Like their sizzle reel. Like here's what we got coming out.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you kind of amped up. Marvel and DC typically do this once a year, like as a flagship book.
Mm-hmm. I'm just disappointed they're undoing some stuff.
Well, we don't know for sure how and what.
I'm just glad Dan Slott seems like a guy who has his head on his shoulders for like changing characters around a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's going to be writing Superior Spider-Man again.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, like he's like, the interesting thing I did with Otto was make him have compassion for Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And then it got like undone when he left. And now the second he's coming back to like Spider-Man, like the main storyline proper, he's
has learned nothing.
He's like redoing what he'd done the first time.
All
right?
my memories are gone. Oopsie.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that goes to show you that Dan Slott maybe understands Spider-Man a little better than.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's been writing it for
some of the publisher people. I really think a lot of the people to blame for Spider-Man being bad off and on are the
executives,
the editors, the chief editors at Marvel.
Yeah, because they watch the trends and they know what sells apparently.
I blame Takashi, whatever.
Oh God, Yoshida,
yeah.
We won't get into that too much. Do you want to get into the books that we have read? I read one book.
You read a book?
Yeah.
All right. Can you intro your book, and I'm going to see if I can find what I've read in my short box behind me.
Yeah, I read the ENFIELD Gang, the ENFIELD Gang Massacre. Lord, let me try that again. I read the ENFIELD Gang Massacre by Chris Condon and Jacob Phillips. This is in That Texas Blood.
That has a spinoff now.
Yeah, but it's not like really attached to too much because it's set back in the Old West, in the same town. So like it's related, and they're like building off of That Texas Blood, but it really is kind of its own like little fun.
That's cool though. It adds some like
Western
lore
stuff.
to
Yeah, exactly. And it was a great book. Like if you're loving That Texas Blood, you're gonna love this book. The colors are absolutely eye-popping, and the characters are written really dynamically by Chris, and it's just fun to see this world being fleshed out and enriched even more. And I gotta wonder like where else they're gonna go with this, because this is like a limited series. I think it's like 5 or 6, and so I think they're just gonna tell a small brief history of the town set in the Old West, and then how that's gonna affect the story that's happening right now in That Texas Blood. So I really enjoyed it. It's out on Image. Go check it out if you're Oh, and what's great about
you don't
it is
have to have read.
Yes, I was just about to cover that. You don't have to have read anything from That Texas Blood to understand what's happening right now, which is brilliant. As a creative team, you can just have people jump in and jump out whenever they want. It's just an Old West revenge story that is primed for Image and for its for Jacob Phillips to be on. So that's what I read. I don't want to give too much away on that book, but it was a goodie. You got a bunch of Night Terror books sitting right in front of me right now.
That's how I spent my weekend, was catching up on a lot of Night Terror stuff. They're all first issues that I pulled out, and I've been enjoying it. I know that like a lot of people were kind of daunted just by how many Night Terror books there were, but I'll say that they did the thing that I appreciate at DC, where they kind of put a hiatus on the normal ongoing. So I'm just
like
kind of like buying these in place of my normal DC books. So cost about the same. And then I buy a couple others that are just like, I haven't dipped my toe into that character in a minute, and it'll be fun to see what their deal is. But I'll say that like I think it's not quite as interesting as Marvel's Axe Judgment Day, where you saw each character getting like judged in their own
unique way,
in their own storylines or titles. And this does something similar, where you're seeing each of the characters' like worst nightmares manifest in their own storylines, or like they try to find a way to like tie it in a little bit to like, here's where the character is at this point in the DC universe, and make it feel like not so far detached from what's going on right now in the DCU. So I appreciate that, and then it's just a fun motif to explore what haunts or troubles each of these characters.
Right. That's the big allure to read this.
Yeah, I think they're really, really fun, and it's written in a way where you can really take or leave a lot of them. There are a couple, like the Zatanna one I didn't buy, and that turns out, I think, it's sounding like that one has some maybe story crucial stuff going on to it, or at least like especially interesting content for like peppering the larger narrative, whereas some of these like really, really stand alone. So I'll just pop up some of these covers as I name them off. I've got too many to talk about them individually, but Nightwing was pretty cool.
Becky Cloonan.
Yeah, and Becky Cloonan wrote that one. That's another thing about this too. Some of these you have the ongoing writers of the stories writing them, and then other ones you just have random writers, illustrators, etc. just hopping in. So that's also fun for me to just see like someone else's take on that character for a minute. And then the covers on these are just like fun too. I think DC's really leaning into this whole like, our fans love metal, they love
horror,
zombies, they love nightmare shit. Like, this just fits the motif of like fucked up stuff that they're
so let's give them what they want,
trying to do. I think this one, I think Night Terrors is like, here's a Shazam cover with a beautiful Dan Mora cover.
Is the Black Adam written by Jeremy Hahn?
Written and illustrated.
Nice. Mark
So
Waid,
our buddy Jeremy Hahn from Missouri.
From the Missouri.
I think there's the Night Terror's First Blood, which seemed like it. I wish this book was just called like Night Terrors 1.
Night Terror is the main,
because it seems like an add-on thing, and this is like completely essential story. I think that's where this event failed a bit. Is
you don't have a definitive title.
Yeah, there wasn't like a definitive like kicking off point, and then like the Free Comic Book Day had like a cameo appearance of the bad guy. Night Terror's First Blood introduces him a little more.
Wait, so the main title is DC Night Terrors, right here. Dawn of DC.
You're correct.
Okay.
So there's gonna be a Night Terrors like 1, 2, 3, 4. But the story's already going once you get to this bad boy.
Oh, so there was like an alpha issue,
which is First Blood.
Which is First Blood. Okay, gotcha.
Which is not very obvious. And then there are books like Batman Night Terrors, which is like the formal first appearance of the bad guy, that you could have also easily missed if you're just like, I'm just going to follow the main Night Terrors title. You're going to be lost in this. So when I initially started picking these up, here's the Night Terrors.
Is that a bat with a gun for a head on the Batman cover?
Yes.
Holy hell.
I mean, it's nightmare stuff, right? Yeah. So the imagery they can just go like bonkers with. So they've been really fun to read just for that. The Joker is like a big highlight one because his everyone else has like these fucked up monsters and like watching horrific stuff happen to their families, like typical nightmare shit. And then the Joker's is having like a desk job.
I love that. That's Matthew Rosenberg.
Yes, it is.
So good.
So this is a really standout issue. I'd say that's one that like seek out and read it just because it's cool.
That's just Steelworks.
In this pile, I have Steelworks, which like started pretty close to, I think it's on like its third issue by now, maybe, but it started really near Night Terror starting. So
What'd you think of it?
I also read this one this weekend. I liked it. It was they're kind of pivoting for Steel to like try to take a step back from superheroing a bit and run Steelworks. And he's at odds a bit with like how involved he wants the super family to be, like period, and his kind of philosophy on how much Metropolis should really be dependent on superheroes like they are now. And so there's some interesting conversation there with him being, obviously that's kind of like well-trodden territory, but I think it's interesting coming from him as a member of the super family, being at odds with them in this way. It's written by
Worf.
Yeah, Michael Dorn, who does the voice of Steel in a lot of the cartoons. So that's also just like a cool, fun thing about it.
Yeah, totally.
So added that in the middle of my Night Terrors book. Teenie Howard did the Catwoman one, and this one really stood out as unique.
That cover's suggestive.
Yeah, most of these are like, you like see your character like entering a dream, and it's like obviously fucked up, and they recognize that it's a dream pretty quickly. And this one is a bit different in that it's exploring a part of Catwoman's past with her rekindling with old family members, and then going through this, like reliving the same trauma she had with them in like a new scenario. There's some like a really interesting depth to it. And if I remember correctly, she doesn't necessarily put together that it is a dream.
Oh.
So this is another kind of standout one that I'm interested in. Another standout issue is Wonder Woman, which is a little bit of a continuation of Justice League Dark.
Yeah, I was going to say that because Detective
Chimp is with Wonder Woman when Metropolis kind of falls to sleep.
Falls to sleep, if you will.
and so they seek out the other members of Justice League Dark in like the dreamscape. They realize they can connect with each other.
Oh, nice.
And so they like find Constantine, and
that's awesome. Is that Dr. Fate?
Yeah, and Dr. Fate, and they kind of go through an old like a traditional Minotaur labyrinth thing.
Oh, cool.
Which is just fun with like the Wonder Woman mythology, and then doing like a Greek Isles kind of.
That's awesome. I love that
story. So that's another standout one worth getting. Superman, I'm having a hard time remembering what the thread was there, but I know I liked it. Williamson did that book, so I love everything he does.
Is that a Mirka and Dolfo cover for Punchline?
I don't know. Do you think so?
Maybe.
Yeah, it might be. You tell us, video watchers. I just like Punchline as a character, and so I'm picking up anything that's Punchline related at the moment. Robin was cool. We've got two of the Robins in this storyline, and they're dealing with Red Hood and being responsible for the deaths of other members of like the Bat family and
Oh,
stuff like
right.
that. I think that was a big thing for Nightwing's thing, is that he like killed Bruce in his issue. We got Ravager. This was
Who's the
another
daughter of Deathstroke?
Yeah, this was another standout one. I think it was like, particular, like kind of like haunted house sort of motif, and was particularly like creepy. And then Poison Ivy, I think another standout one where you can tell from the cover there, if you're watching the video, that it's very like Stepford Wives, and her kind of nightmare is living in like that cookie cutter suburban utopia, and just going with the flow as like a polite member of a neighborhood.
Right.
When lately her whole thing has been kind of like hippy dippy, on the run, like
Yeah, the
bio warrior.
the G. Willow Wilson
Yeah,
miniseries that got turned into an ongoing has been just phenomenal.
I really like that series. And so this, with like the Lamia spores and all that stuff that they've been doing in that, and so many beautiful covers. And this one was interesting because while this is her worst nightmare, she more or less submits to it because Harley is there, and it's what the Harley of this nightmare wants.
Right.
And so it's interesting to see her kind of try to come to terms with like her hellscape by like submitting to it, which is maybe part of the larger terror for her, is that she will,
the bigger picture of,
is that the bigger picture that she succumbs to settling down, and
she'll live in a nightmare for the one she loved the most.
Yes, right.
Have you noticed something that DC and Marvel are doing differently that DC is succeeding at so very well?
And Marvel is not?
Yes.
Oh, this is so vague. I don't know.
So with every one of these covers, you'll notice, I don't know if you have, on the barcode, it has written who has drawn the cover on each of these.
Oh, yeah.
And DC has started doing that recently, and Marvel has not. And you have to like basically do a guessing game of who's done the cover. And I think that is so smart of DC to just have there in plain sight.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, this is who this is whose art you're seeing right now.
Yep. I do like
think
that.
I love that. So I've been meaning to give a kudos to DC recently, because they've been doing it for a while now. That they'll just highlight who the cover artist is right there up front.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, all these like tiny artist signatures that are like hidden in cover art.
Right.
And you can't tell.
Yeah, and I can't read those for shit.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's a big part of the
That's getting exposure.
hobby too, is just like covers and cover art. So totally make that more obvious for us. I love that.
Anyway, good job, DC. I like that you're highlighting the creator on the forefront of your book. So that was so as an event, how do you grade Night Terrors so far?
I am going to say B+.
Oh, not bad.
You're surprised by that because it's higher or lower than you thought I was going to give it?
I mean, B+ is a pretty safe grade. I
think the arcing storyline of what is going on wasn't as clearly and explicitly defined as I would have liked, and that would have made me enjoy these a little more if it was like, clearly here's the setup. It's clear that you have to read these like 3 issues and tie-ins first,
right,
and then you're gonna go have fun with it.
Right.
Ultimately, it is more or less an excuse to see the fucked up nightmares of characters you love.
Yeah.
And just have like some fun random creators cannonball into that because they're good at horror, like Jeremy Hahn, or like writers who know the characters really well already and can do the like interesting backstory, like a Teenie Howard being like so involved with Catwoman's history,
right,
and a big fan for a really long time. So it's cool to see The event is more like an excuse to do fun shit with that, and it is succeeding to the nth degree for me.
It seems
in
like
that.
It seems like a cheap way for them to do Elseworld without saying Elseworld.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
And then to like have it, come out of it with like, some characters might have repercussions from this because it is canon, and some characters can just like wash their hands of it. You know what I mean? Like, I always think that's interesting when one of the things that we talked about that was like the one of the interesting things about Age of X-Man.
Yes.
Am I thinking of the right thing?
From like 2018?
Yeah. Was that it was such like an oppressive, like, it was like this oppressive society that had been created in like the mind space of a telepath, or like in an alternate like universe somewhere.
Yeah.
And they told all these like crazy stories that are just
Make 'em
ups, but everyone came out of that remembering what they went through. And so there was potential to come back with like fucked up relationships with other X-Men characters that they'd always been on good terms with, because you can see that had the scenario been a little different this way or a little different that way, you would not have been a good supportive person to me in my life. And then some people established relationships and then came back to the real world, and it was like, are they still going to be in a relationship? They had a child together in like a mindscape, and they come back and they grieve the loss of that child. There were so many, I think, cool, interesting things to be explored there that we never really got to see the comeuppance from, because Marvel was just like, next thing.
Do you know what the next thing was?
It was House and Powers.
Yeah, it was Hawks and Pox.
Yeah. Which
as soon as that dropped, everyone fucking forgot about Age of X-Men.
I know. And don't get me wrong, I love Hawks and Pox, and I think it was like it obviously spurred
defined a generation
of X-Men stories, and the Krakoa, era is firmly cemented as an era. I mean, there's eras of X-Men in the past that have certainly been way more ambiguous. And this one's like
forgotten, you would say.
Yeah, and this one's like very defined and has like
it's definitive. It's
beginning, middle, and ending in a way that not a lot of comics do, with like such a long streak of time.
15 years we'll have Jonathan Hickman at comic book conventions just like Chris Claremont is now.
Sure.
I'm just like, that's not how I would have done it. You'll have people that are now our age now, just like, oh, shut up, Jonathan Hickman, you're old and washed up. And we'll be in line just like defending him.
But he's
brilliant.
I do regret not getting to witness the fallout of the end of Age of X-Men. I think that would have been so interesting.
Yeah. To have X-Man get his like trial.
Yeah, exactly right. Where does he stand with all these characters? He hasn't really been a part of.
Yeah. Didn't he lock himself away in his own mind or something? Like something happened with him.
Yeah. But he hasn't been like brought back, or he's not like in the pit, right now.
In the pit.
The
Sabretooth pit.
The Sabretooth pit, yeah. So
I need to look into that because I don't know where X-Man is currently.
Yeah.
Well, if you read the Hellfire Gala, he's probably off planet.
I bought a lot of those Age of X-Man tie-ins, and I thought they were
they were cool.
Blast. And I think did some people kind of pan that series? I'm trying to remember what like the cultural conversation was surrounding it.
People were bored.
But I loved it. I thought it was great.
People were bored with it.
Yeah. It's another one of those things where you've got to buy a lot of tie-ins to get like the full picture and like pepper everything, but I thought it was really interesting.
Well, I think people were immediately put off by it because they saw that Hawks and Pox was on the horizon.
Yeah, and they're just like, let's get to that thing.
Well, and Hawks and Pox was advertised as the next big thing. Like everything changes.
Okay, that was probably a big problem for them, and I feel sorry for the creators of like who are trying to tell a story of interest and have comics sell, and then they're like, okay, but months ahead of time they're like, okay, but none of this is going to matter soon because we're going to like completely reset the timeline.
Right.
That is a hard place to come as a creator.
That's like the guy who has to bat before Babe Ruth. You know what I mean? Like everyone says, like, yeah, hurry up. I just want to see Babe Ruth hit this home run.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but I've practiced the fundamentals for like a couple years. They're like, yeah, shut the fuck up. Just get on base so Babe can hit. We're here for Babe. Anything else before we sign off, Mikey?
No, I was trying to see if I had anything interesting to pull out of here. I have been reading Tim Seeley's Money Shot, and I haven't heard much discourse surrounding this, but the storyline of it is that like in the future, the way IP is like people get the IP of old characters and turn them into like the whole book, if you don't know Money Shot, is about like the
profiting off of porn, further science development.
Yes, exactly right. And one of the things that comes out of that is getting intellectual property to advance science, because you could have sexy times with, any famous character in the past.
The brave little toaster.
Yeah. So what they did was they took a couple old comic book characters, one famously being an old like
Pop-Tart,
raunchy 60s comic, which is
like a
cherry Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
is like a free love hippie babe that's like
done an excuse to draw nipples,
done in the style of Archie. Yeah, but they wrote her into Money Shot, so it's just been kind of a funny.
I love that.
Yeah. Another funny layer for them to pepper into an already kind of funny storyline.
Hell yeah, that's fantastic.
So that's another one to check out. If you're an old comic, if you're a comic fan that appreciates some of those older, weird pulp adult comics that kind of have like a certain charm all their own because they're of a certain era and don't really exist anymore, I think like this is
you'll dig it.
A funny way to like relitigate some of that.
Hell yeah.
You're getting some like commentary surrounding like what the deal with those comics were as like this book's
important.
Going on. So
I think that's important to do.
Totally.
Because we talked about it before about how
Money Shot's a very sex positive book.
Yeah,
like, and you could argue that these Pop-Tart comics are very much more like exploitative.
Yeah, but like we've always said that like those had to walk so books like Money Shot could run
100%.
So that the fact that this book is exploring that in itself is brilliant.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, some interesting themes there. All right, right on. So thanks for tuning in to the First Issue Club. Again, if you want to check out the video of us speaking.
Yep.
While you listen to this.
And see if we have clothes on or off. Go to patreon.com.
Tune over to the Patreon.
/First Issue Club.
And that is all. Bye for now.
Bye.
First Issue Club is edited and produced by Mike DeStacy, Greg Lichtag, and Andy Vargas. Follow us on social media at First Issue Club, and check out our Patreon for videos, audio, and more at patreon.com/First Issue Club.
Turn off the microphone, they can still hear my words.